So I was talking about collies, I was talking about dogs, and today I thought it'd be cool to do something with like some intensity. And so now today I'd like to do a wolf. So I've always been fascinated by wolves. My brother, who's out in Colorado, he has huskies that look exactly like wolves. These things are like massive and they have this severity to them that I love. But to show you how to draw from animals, draw nature, I thought I'd show you my hero from when I was a boy. So my favorite book illustrator and author when I was growing up was Jim Arnowski. Like literally the guy, still to this day, I have his books, and he's just one of my heroes. So Jim Arnowski drew, he illustrated all these books, drawing from nature, and he drew the most beautiful, like, I just love his style. Like he does this great job of making something look really close to like what it actually is. It's realistic. It's nature, but he stylizes it in such a way that there's a rhythm pulsating through everything. So Jim Arnowski is just, again, he's like one of my heroes. Sorry about the little arrow down there, but I think there's like such a fun way that he captures like the motion that's going through like all of nature. Just how you can see like going along the bottom of the screen, you can see like all the different angles that the fish, will be at in the water. And again, it's just, he's absolutely brilliant. Even like the little leaves up there, I think he's like one of the greatest artists in our age. The way that he connects to nature is singular. So Drawing Life in Motion is another book by him. He has a lot of books. And I highly suggest you getting these books if you don't already own them, because he has this way of simplifying things so that you understand it. And I think he's like, again, like I know I'm like singing his praises so much, but I really think he's absolutely one of the best artists for you to look at as you draw nature. So let's look at what we're drawing. So yeah, Michael, they came back from extinction. You're talking about the wolves, right? Yeah. So, and Daniel, no, I haven't read Jim Arnowski's Crocodile Safari. That sounds really cool. I actually was looking him up today. I was like, I've only read like 4 or 5 of his books. He's got loads. So maybe that's something we could do in our classes. So jumping back over, this is the wolf I was thinking of drawing today. And I just really love the intensity of his eyes right there. There's just something so, I don't need to put into words. It's majestic, it's powerful. And with that, let's jump over to our drawing. So I'm just gonna pull this up right here. What I'm gonna suggest to you guys is that let me see, I'm gonna go over on this side of the page right here. Let me find, okay, that's like roughly the top of my page. Find the bottom of my page right here. Okay, so like roughly in this space right here. What I want to do, as ever, is I want to be sure that I'm seeing the big picture. I don't, like, part of me is tempted to go like this and to draw a wolf like that, but like another part of me, like I really like seeing the stance of his legs. So I'm gonna get the whole entire wolf in here. And so I'm just gonna go, let's say right here. And, so Heidi, you were asking landscape style or portrait. I think, let me see, this is kind of like right here. This is kind of like portrait, I would say. It's like portrait-ish. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit because I can see that I'm a little bit too close in there. I think like portrait mode would probably be best right there. And make it, taller rather than wider. So even still, I think I'm a little bit too zoomed in here. So I'm just gonna pull back a little bit more so that the ears don't go right off the page. All right, so cool. So I have that roughly, the head mapped out. Let's treat the whole body as being a square. So it's like a rectangle. So we're gonna see the whole entire torso of our wolf as being a square, just like that. And then let's not see individual legs for a while. Let's just see like almost like a triangle. So there's the triangle of the 2 front legs right there. And let's see this back leg. There's a little bit to that back leg. Just put it in a line like that. right there. Like, don't even worry about like putting like 2 lines in. You don't even need to worry about that yet. And then here is the back leg, kind of like it comes, if you look at the back where his tail is, his back leg goes beyond it. So it's kind of like it comes out a little bit more. And then we're just gonna say that roughly speaking, it like comes down like that right there. So you see I have like pretty disjointed lines. Things don't always connect. And that's kind of how I suggest to people that they work in the beginning. Not all your lines need to connect. Things don't need to really make visual sense. Just need to get like some rough things mapped out. Okay, so we have the space for the tail. The tail is going to kind of be like roughly right here. Now let's, for a moment, think about the geometric essence of what we're drawing. So what we're drawing at the moment, you can almost do like a little blowout sketch. And I always tell myself I'm going to keep some scrap paper nearby so that when I want to do a blowout sketch, I don't have to do it in a confusing way on the page. So you're gonna have to bear with me for a moment. I just have this envelope sitting here. And so I'm just gonna use the envelope for a moment. So the wolf's face is nothing other than a sphere that leads to a cone like that. That is how we're gonna view it's like a cone cylinder. That is the dog's head, right? And I keep saying dog. I get a mental block when I teach. Wolf. Maybe I should just like say canine so I don't, so I can say both. So that is the rough map out of his head, right? Well, if that's the head right here, then the body is going to be nothing other than a cube, kind of like going away from us a little bit. So there's the cube right there. We're kind of looking at the cube almost dead on. And so it's like, kind of like that. There is the cube. So you don't really need to go to town, like and do so much with, what I was just showing you. But just to be aware that here is the cone of the nose right here. And when I'm drawing the entire time, I am thinking exactly like this, where I'm thinking of just the geometric essence shapes and really trying to ignore, like, let's say, what's so cool on this guy, like, it's just like the intensity of those eyes. Like, the thing about wolves is that their eyes, like, they say so much and yet they withhold a lot as well. Like, they're really interesting creatures. So I'm not going to think about those eyes. I'm actually forcing myself to not be interested in that. And I just have to, because if I put that eye in the wrong spot, it doesn't matter how beautiful that eye is when I draw it, it's going to look weird. So I think it's worthwhile to, for a moment, pause my narration and just say, how many of you have ever read White Fang? Any of you ever read White Fang by Jack London? Just with a, you could write into the comments if you've read White Fang. So I just, about like maybe 2 months ago, I just picked up White Fang and decided that I wanted to read it. And cool, Daniel, you read White Fang. Jasmine, you watched the movie. It is literally, it's one of the best stories that I've read. I was like, at the end of the book, like, you're like, the inside of you is like dying to like know what's going to happen to this amazing creature. It's a really beautiful read. And so if you haven't read it, I highly recommend you getting your hands on Jack London, his book, White Fang. All right, so I'm just making my way around the limbs, and I'm really just thinking of them almost as being like pipes. And it's like, let's say like a pipe going this way right here, and then a pipe, you can almost like run a line through it. You can say I messed up right there, that's a mistake. The limb comes a little bit lower, the turn, I'm sorry. And then it kind of turns in right here. So I'm not getting too committed to any of these limbs or anything like that, because chances are I'm gonna have to erase everything I did down here because, maybe the limbs are way too short or maybe they're way too long. So early on in my drawing, I don't commit to anything at all. I want to keep everything very malleable. So, all right, so made my way around here. Here is the front limb right here. I'm just seeing it as being almost like, you could think of it as being like a pipe. You can almost think of it in your head as being like this blending stump, and then you turn it different ways like that, like blending stump, blending stump. I try my very best to simplify it to, like, let's say you could think of it as being a square box like that. Whatever it takes for you to not get interested in like the fluffy fur at the back of his leg or something like that. You do not want to think of that. All right, so I have this mapped out right here. Now I take a look and I say, okay, does the size of the head match the body? I think I probably made the muzzle a little bit too big. If I make his head too big, the unfortunate thing will be that he'll look like a cartoon character. Like when we make heads and facial features too large, automatically it just looks like, you know, cartoony. So I'm gonna like bring this in a little bit. Maybe this comes down somewhat more. And now again, I will pause for a moment. And as I look, one of the things that I would encourage you to do as you work, so you see my setup right here. You can see how much distance I have. So I haven't done this with you often. I've done this a couple of times. But what I would encourage you to do right now is pause. Take your pencil, put it down, and go like this. Look at your drawing from a distance, and I'll show you what I do. See me all the way back here? I look that far away, and I say, do the shapes all look right? When we look too close to something too often, and we're like this, we're looking at an area. We can't see the whole thing. We got to pull back, and we go, oh, I made those legs way too short, or oh, I made those legs way too long. You don't really know until you pull away. So I would recommend doing that. Push your drawing away from you, go like that, look at it from a distance, check it out, and then I'm going to pull up on the screen the wolf. So go ahead, put your drawing far away from you, take a look at the screen, make sure that the legs aren't too short. If you need to even like check it out, there are little tricks that you can do. Like you can say, all right, the body to the top of the body to the bottom of the body, like let's say, I don't know, like where the legs like meet, like right around here. It's equal in distance to the bottom of the body to the bottom of the legs, like roughly speaking. Maybe I'm off by a little bit. So you can go like this, and you can actually measure things out that way. My recommendation for measurements wasn't exact that I just gave you. It's not exactly 1:1. I'm just saying you don't want it to be mismatched. And that's very important to do at this stage of the drawing. I have seen people do portrait commissions. When I lived in Florence, I shared a studio with a lot of other artists. There was an artist who worked on a painting for, I want to say 6 or 7 weeks. And he painted this woman, and she had this beautiful outfit on, and her head went right off the canvas. And so like the canvas literally chopped the top of her head off, and he just threw his painting out. So you want to make sure that your proportions stay within where you want them to be. All right, so now what we're going to do, I'm kind of pleased with it. I think it's off a little bit. I can't really entirely tell why. Let me just sharpen my pencil really quick. And I'm back. I can't really tell exactly where the, I'm just sharpening up over here. This is, as ever, over here is my, the area where I have my sanding block. All right, so all I can do at this point, because I'm not really sure that everything's correct, is I can just start going into specifics, and then hopefully my eye works things out if there is anything wrong. So I'm going to now start focusing on, like, I'm not going to do a ton of detail in the, like, let's say like the nose right here, but I'm just going to indicate generally the broad planes and where things turn. So it kind of goes like this. I don't want to, again, I don't want to spend a lot of time drawing in an eye, but I'm going to say, okay, the eye kind of like, it's shaped like this, like sharp, it's like this sharp almond shape. The eyeball itself is round. but then it sits within this like really cool forward slice like that. So again, like you could check all of your different shapes out. You could say, is the distance from here to here too big? I made it too big. This is how I work all the time. So I'm just gonna go like this, and I just slide it in like that. And I say, okay, there is my second guess at where the eye is going to sit. And then again, within the slit of the eye, let's go like this. Within the slit of that eye is the round of the eyeball itself. So like, that's my best guess from now. I don't want to go any further on that. I'm gonna say, okay, I feel like the muzzle is still maybe a little bit too big. So I'm just gonna bring his mouth up just a hair. Now I'm gonna start making my way around the rest of the drawing. So let's say I'll try to get a better idea of what's going on with the ear right here. And Quinlan, you watched the cartoon when you were little. I don't even remember that, but Quinn, that's something we'll have to watch together. We could watch it in the next night or so. So for all that don't know, Quinlan is my third son, and Quinn is really good at drawing. All right, so now one of the things is the camera angle is a little bit distorted. That's more accurate to like how my drawing actually looks, but it's on a tilted table. So my drawing is a little bit more at like what I would say like a vertical angle than it looks in the image to you guys. So I still think I'm gonna bring this in a little bit. So that looks, yeah, that looks a little bit better to me, which requires me to then move the both feet over. In moving this over right here, I have to keep the leg as thin and as graceful as the wolf's legs are. All right, so now I can see something happening. I think that the legs need to come a little bit lower right here. I allow for that all the time in my drawings. That's why I don't draw close to the edge of my page. And I don't think I'm gonna have any problems going beyond that mark right there. I think that's the bottom of my page, and I still have like a lot of room, if you could see right there. So I'll leave that for the time being. Again, I'm just leaving a lot of these areas, they're pretty graceless. That is like a really ugly square block right there, but that's all I need at the moment. I'm gonna come back over here. There's a little bit more of a bulge right here on the front of his leg, and then it like rounds off right here. Now what I want to pause for a moment and take a look at the negative space. So the negative space is the space in between the legs right here. So whenever you're trying to draw something like legs, ask yourself, is the negative space lining up? Or is the positive, or are you just looking at the leg itself? So don't forget that when you draw, you can look at the negative. So I think I made the legs too close because this shape in here was too skinny. And so I'm gonna bring it back a little bit like that. And that gives it a little bit more breathing room. The legs aren't so smack up against each other. I'll grab my eraser. I'm using a little bit of a different kind of paper today, slightly different. So it doesn't erase quite as well, but it's still very good paper. All right, so now because I moved the leg over, I'm going to slide over the back of the leg right here. And that more or less sums up the back of the leg. I can get, again, we'll get a lot more specific on all these things in a little while. Now I'm onto the back leg, and I can see that I went too far in this way, so I have to step everything out a little bit like this. And what will help me is I'll get that tail in first, and then I can see that that back leg just goes beyond the tail. So let's look at, we're looking at that right there. If you can see the tail, and then you can see that back leg. It's kind of hard to see Let me see if I can get this even. There you go. So it kind of comes like this. And again, don't just look at the positive shapes. Also look at the negative shapes in between. And so I'm just going to go like that. And that roughly is the back leg. So there's an arc to the bottom of the drawing, and that will require me just to move the drawing for a moment. And take a look at the bottom of the feet. So the bottom of the feet kind of goes like this. And I think the front paws right here, I think they're landing at a decent spot. And I can see that the back paw is all the way down here. So that's why I'm always stepping back and looking at my drawing from a distance, because so much of the power of this just like really majestic creature, like some creatures are not majestic, some creatures just look absolutely comical and fun. Other ones are so majestic, and the wolf is definitely majestic. And something about that, like the wide splayed stance, gives this piece its power. So now I'm going to go like this. I'm going to come back here again, and I like that so much more. That's way better. All right, so now that I have that roughly mapped out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my blending stump, and I have to move over my camera just for one moment so that you could see where I'm working. And so now I'm coming over to here. I'm grabbing some, I have this charcoal powder, I'm sorry, graphite powder right here. And that graphite powder, I'll take it with a blending stump. And what I'll do is, there are a lot of like really soft transitions. So what I'll do is I'll take that graphite powder and I'll go like this. And now I'll start to like map out the big shapes. And so if you don't have graphite powder, no problem whatsoever. You could just shade it with your pencil like this. And I think I say this most lessons. The reason why I use graphite powder is because as I teach you guys, I can accelerate, I can go quicker if I move in like big broad masses. And then you can see like my drawing develop quicker and you can learn more. So I love graphite powder. I use it in my work constantly. And I really learned this from the Russians. And the Russian artists that I studied, they use graphite powder heavily in their work. So I could always find the eye in there in a little bit. I don't really need to worry about the eye specifically too much yet. I'm just going like this. As you look at the image, what I would suggest to you is you're looking at your wolf, close one eye and squint. And we've done this a bunch of times, but as you look at your drawing, if you have your eyes wide open and you're like looking with great detail, then your drawing is going to be like, you're going to be focusing too much on the parts. And so you'll hear me say this all the time, can you see the forest for the trees? If you look at a whole bunch of trees and you close one eye and you really, really squint, you could see the whole forest. You see like the unity of it. And then if you open your eyes and you look at one branch and one leaf, then you're hyper-focusing, right? That's not a bad thing. But right now we want to close one eye and squint. So try to see the whole entire image right now and see like the whole back of our wolf, the entire back of the wolf is dark right here. So it just goes like that. And if you overextend your boundary a little bit, you can just go like this. And so there is his back. Now I'm going to go to the underside of the body right here. It's much gentler, the values down here. There's a general, the light is coming kind of like above and to the side. Like we can't like entirely tell. It's like kind of like right up here. So over here, it's going to get pretty dark on his chest. There's some light coming from behind this wolf as well. This back leg is going to go completely into shadow right here. And then we have the front leg generally it's in a little bit of shadow. The leg back here, it's definitely much more so in shadow. We'll let it like kind of be a gradient. The base of the tail is going to be in shadow. Just like that. And then there's like a general value across a lot of the body. Like you can see, like, let's say right here in the hind quarter, it's going to be light right there. So wherever it's the lightest light, you know, you can hold off. And so it's going to be pretty light at the paws right there. So I'll just kind of like put a value right over here. It's going to get really dark right up against here, against the wolf's. I'd call this like his armpit. So it's really dark right in there. And it's going to be a little bit dark right here. Again, I'm just looking literally at the image. So I'm going to, for a moment, I'm going to pull the image up so that you can all see the image much darker. I mean, much more detail. And I'm still drawing on my end, but I think it's useful for you to see this close-up image. Now I'll jump back over. So now I can see there's a lot more detail, like let's say that I could put into the face at this point. So what I'm going to do is, for a moment, I'm going to switch back over. I'll let you look at that. I'm going to get the graphite off of my hands. Then I'm going to zoom in on the face of my wolf. And we're going to focus on that for a little while. And so, all right, so let's go into much more detail on that face. So I'll just go like this right here and just trying to get it to stop shaking. All right, so I had the 2B pencil. Up until this point, I've really just been working with 2B. I think I'll stay with it for a little while because I want the dark velvety quality. I don't want any like sharp specifics just yet. I think the space between the ears is too tight. I think I made a mistake there. So I'm going to move the ear out a little bit like this. And so I hope one of the things that you come away from drawing together with me, I hope one of the things that you come away with is that I'm constantly making mistakes and I don't beat myself up over it. I just move things when they're in the wrong spot. Because when you don't have much information to work with, you can't really land things correctly like the first time. So I'm totally fine with making mistakes early on, and then just as I go, I just correct them. So I should say quickly that I think this is a really cool image, and I could not for the life of me find out who took the photograph of this wolf. So I looked everywhere, but I can't give the person credit. So, all right, so the back of the wolf, even though there's a definite line to his neck, it's a soft transition because it's all hair there. So what we're going to do is, if it's as soft as you can see right now, go ahead and draw it in a really soft way. And when you do that, you can always go back in and you can put in like specific lines. Like there are like sharp lines like this that we could get to at a later point. If you look at the back of the neck right there, there are some, again, like darker, sharper hairs. But we don't really need to worry about that for a while. Let's just focus more so on the face. So now I am going to put down my 2B pencil, and this is a 2H pencil. And I'm just gonna sharpen up for a minute. I wanna get this really nice and sharp over here. And okay, so that's good and sharp. And now I'm going to go into the face. I can see that I made the eye a little bit too high, and the nose a little bit too long. And so what I'm going to do is the nose, I think the head has a little bit more mass to it. So I'm going to move this eye kind of like down and in, and then I'm going to move the general like shape of the head out a little bit more like that. So that might even require that upper ear moving yet again. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm just gonna go like this and get a little bit more specific for a little bit. So as you're drawing and everything is really soft, one of the things you could rightly worry about, you could say like, well, the whole drawing is just turning into like nothing but fluff and utter. Like it just looks like totally like fluff. And that's a valid concern. So the way that we can address that is if you're working with something that has a lot of fur, okay, so it's all blurry at the moment. Ask yourself, what is actually sharp? Like what on my drawing is really, really sharp? And then try to get that earlier rather than later. And so I'm looking around the drawing. I'm going to move this eye over a little bit yet again. And I'm going to say to myself that the eyes and the muzzle of the nose are pretty sharp. So what I'm going to do is, this is my best guess at the moment for where the eye sits. So I'm just going to go like that and just get it sharp, not over sharp, but just where the actual eye feels like it's sharp. So it's like right down here. And so I have like that one moment, and that sharp makes everything over here okay. If it gets over blurry, the whole thing just starts to fall apart. But if you have these moments that get sharper, now I'm working with an F pencil. And that feels like much better right there. And now I'm going to go over to this eye. This eye, if you go left to right, you'll notice that this eye sits a little bit lower. And we don't have to give too much detail to these things, just enough. Cool. So that's actually starting to, for me, feel a little bit better. I can see that this ear does in fact need to move over yet again. So I'm just going to slide that over one more time, just like that. And if you notice that the ear is completely light. So if the ear is completely light, then you can start shading in the background and use the background being dark as a means of popping off the light on certain aspects of the wolf. So there's no way to make that ear look light unless you darken right behind that ear. And Daniel, you were saying, what's my darkest pencil? I do have, like, I think a 12B pencil. I almost never use it because it's like a really oily pencil and I don't like the way it looks. It looks like, I don't know, it just like looks like too shiny. So I usually, the darkest I go is probably like 8B, but I really don't even use that often either. So most of my pencil range, I would say, stays in the range of, a lot of my work stays in the range of like probably 5H to 3B. And then I do little punctuations of darker areas of, like, let's say I'll go then into a moment, like I'll show you actually in the drawing right here, Daniel. So I'm going to jump over so you can see me selecting. You can't quite see over here, but like, let's say this is a 10B pencil right here. And so I'll show you how I would use the 10B. It's a little early for me to do it. I wouldn't ordinarily do it, but I'd like to just show you. His nose is really dark. right at the base of it, right at the end of it, the tip of it. So that's an instance in which I might get a 10B out, and just for that moment, punctuate like that one area. There's this really cool, I just love the way like the mouth hangs there. Like, I don't know, there's just something about, I know like it's like silly the way I talk about these things, but the wolf has like a way of like, it almost feels like it's half spirit, half animal. And their mouths seem like they're almost ready to talk, but they don't say anything. Like there's just something about like the presence of a wolf. And so I love that. And the only way to get that is to like really punch that dark. And then that looks all like too abrupt at the moment. So what I do is I'll blend it in with a blending stump. I'll push it into the paper. So again, like the 10B pencil doesn't want to go into the paper quite in the same way as like the other pencils. It's a little bit more oily. And that's why like I don't use it often. And so the reason why it looks like a little bit out of place right now is because it goes abruptly light to abruptly dark. So let's address that. What we can do is we'll erase, kind of like clean up a little bit. And then you can go in. This is just like a regular F pencil. I'll take the 10B and I'll put it away for the time being. And now I'll paint in all these halftones. Draw in all these halftones. For as long as I've ever taught drawing and painting, it's been about 17 years now I've been teaching, I always interchange the words painting and drawing. I've never been able to fix that mental block in 17 years. It's just how my brain works. Or it's how my brain doesn't work. Take your pick. All right, so I'm going to erase away like right under here. And again, all these transitions for a while are going to feel way too abrupt until you get all the values in. And once you start getting these halftone values in, then the dark at the base of the nose is going to make sense. I love the light at the tip of his nose. That really matters to me. So I'm going to be careful to erase away that light at the tip of the nose right there. And then there's this really cool, like, dark spot right beneath that eye. And really, if you want that light to shine on the tip of the nose, right here, there's light right here, light right here, that means that everything else is going to have to get a little bit dark. So now, if your drawing feels like it's getting like almost a little bit over, almost like over, like softened in like, let's say like the facial area, what you can do is you can pull out like a sharp pencil and then you can start going in and getting like these little tiny moments where you can see that there's this like little dark right over here. And I'm going to call this his eyebrow. No, I don't think dogs necessarily have true eyebrows, but they have something resembling an eyebrow. And so you see how I'm going in really sharp with this 2H pencil. And when you go in with these precise moments, it relieves all the over softening. And your drawing will not end up looking... Have you guys ever seen like photography from the 1970s when they used to use these blurry filters? Everything looks like super, super over softened. It was like an aesthetic for a while. Your drawings can look that way if you're using your blending stump and your fingers too much. So then you just relieve it by putting in these sharps. But it's like very small moments. I'm actually going to have to like zoom in even more to show you what I mean by this. So you go in like really, really precise like that. Let me pull it over just a hair and see if I can get it just like that. And it's this is when a drawing really starts to get cool, where you start to like go into these tiny specifics. You could get this right here is a 9H pencil. So the 9H pencil is incredibly light, but I just want to show you how you can trace out like the path of even like the hairs that are on the nose. Like that. So you can ask my son Quinlan, every single time we go to watch a movie, everyone else in the family, they want to watch, I don't know, something like, can't think of like the name of what it might be, like, I don't know, Quinn, if you think of a movie that everyone in the family likes to watch, and whenever I sit down to TV, I always want to watch the TV series Alone, where they have people and they have them stranded. So they take men and women, they leave them stranded on like some island in the middle of British Columbia, or a lake in British Columbia or somewhere like that. I love those programs, and it's just something I love about being out in nature, although everyone in the family agrees that I'm a total liar and I'm a total hypocrite, because if you dropped me off in the middle of British Columbia, I would most certainly be looking for a coffee shop within like 20 minutes so I could get myself a really nice coffee. And so I'm a liar, don't listen to me. But I imagine myself as being this wilderness man that wants to be out there amidst wolves and drawing them in all their glory while they try to eat me. So you see how, again, I'm getting more specific right here. Let's say like I went a little bit too sharp up here. What you can do is you can go in with the blending stump if it gets over sharp, and you can just soften right up until that light ear. And that enables you to keep all the focus right here on the face, and to keep the background, like let's say this ear, to keep it in gentler focus. Our eyes can't focus on everything. And that's, I think, the blight of so much art instruction nowadays is you see these amazing drawings on the internet, on YouTube, where someone draws like someone famous, and you look at it and you're like, it's impressive, but why don't I like it? And it's probably because if everything is sharpened, it feels false, because the human eye actually doesn't see everything sharp. We only see sharp what our eyes are naturally focusing on. So someone was saying how to highlight the muzzle but still shape it right. Yeah, it's kind of like, for me, what I would say to that is you could put like a little bit of dark, like let's say right here above the muzzle, sorry. A little bit of dark, and then you just want to be careful to keep the thought that, let me see if I can erase this, that this is going to be receiving all the light. So you keep it like clean, and you don't even allow the side of your hand to make that like messy. And then the side of the face right here, you can let this get pretty dark. Like this over here, let me go back to, this is a 2H pencil. This over here can get pretty dark underneath the eye. So that can get pretty dark right here, but you don't want to get it dark right here. That's where the light is hitting. So you want to say to yourself, it's almost like this is a box, and this is the top of the box right here. You want to keep that pure, but then the side of it, you can let it get, somewhat darker. So I would really go to town. If I were you guys, you could do this where you really spend a lot of time on the face. But then I've gone over by a few minutes here, but I'm just going to show you how when the face locks in nicely, then you can return to the rest of the body, and everything starts making sense because you've locked in the face in a really cool way. And then when you go to the body and you have your proportions mapped out nicely, everything works well because you've worked out all the other problems up here. I'm sorry, you've worked out the major problem up here, so that everything else falls into place nicely. So again, I have a really sharp pencil right here. It's a 2H pencil, and it's not even that dark, but it's making really nice dark lines for me on the other part of the, I'll just call it the face. I don't really know what to call it. It's like that right there. And it's just this slow, steady observation of like the patterns of fur. There's this whole area right here is way too light. So if I want this to appear to be very bright right here, then this is too light. If you look at the value right here, this value is darker than what's right here. So what you can do is you can take your finger, which if you're like me, it's all dirty by now. You can just go like this and just push that whole area a little bit darker. And now that just got lighter as a consequence. So then you can go back. So I do this all the time as I draw. Whatever needs to be brightest, I just go back and I erase into it to make sure that it keeps that light on it. Just like that. So now I'm going to zoom out so that you could see how if the head falls into place, the rest of the drawing, you can kind of see where it's going to go. And so I'm just going to move the paper. I have 100 pencils in my hand, so I'm just trying to put my pencils down for a moment. And there we go. I'm going to move this over so that you could see how the whole drawing kind of like locks in once the face locks in, after you like have the abstract of the body like mapped out. So let me see, there's roughly the angle. And let me zoom back out of here so that you could see this right there. So the principles that we took in order to, in order to have like the direction of the fur and things of that sort, that principle, when you apply that all over the place, it's going to make your drawing really come alive. So if you think about it, like let's say the front of his front paw, I'll zoom in on it in a moment. The front paw right here, if you take your time and you try to get like all the information right there, where the dark of the underside of the paw meets the dirt, and then you take little directional strokes, then it's just the same exact way that we worked on the face. When you take all that information, you put that in, the drawing's really going to connect in a very nice way. So with that, we are at the end. I've been going over quite a bit. So I really get into the drawings and then I forget where I am. So now I want to see your work. So let me just